Hi, it's Ileana here. So, I recently had an interesting discussion with Kevan Trimmell, who is a SSP, Solar Warden, and ICC Experiencer. He has recently come out with some of his memories of what he remembers, primarily from Solar Warden, and he also remembered me. He recently had an interview with Denny Hunt, and then after that interview, Kevan reached out to me to have a bit of a discussion with me because I was part of one of his memories in a training exercise in the ICC Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate of what we think was on one of the Mars bases, perhaps. So we had an interesting discussion about that memory and some of his other Solar Warden memories and an experience that he had with two ICC agents reaching out to him. So that was interesting as well. So we discussed quite a few things. We also discussed some of the various triangular shaped craft, the TR-3Bs, and other advanced craft that the programs have. I had sent Kevan some images of the craft that had been hovering above my house, the triangular shaped craft, and that resulted in some ICC agents visiting Kevan in a lucid type of an experience. So he was lucid dreaming and also somewhat astral traveling, I think. So it was quite an interesting experience for him because the ICC agents mentioned me in the discussion that they had with him regarding to the photos that I had sent him and the memories that he had of me. So Kevan described that experience to me. That's what we started off our discussion with, and also the craft, and then Kevan's various experiences with Solar Warden, the SSP and the ICC, and also with some of his memories of being stationed with the Nordics above Earth and Mars space. So that was interesting. And also we discussed the reptilian armada, how we were part of how the ICC and Solar Warden loaned us out to the Nordics to repel the reptilian armada that was here from 2000 until 2011, and how we were part of that, some of our memories from those experiences. That was very interesting for me. So this is what our discussion was about. So have a listen, and there's some images attached with the audio file. So there you go. Like, for me, living in BC is beautiful, and I know the bases are here in BC, in the Rocky Mountains and also California area. There's even more than here. So, but I know about the craft. Like, I've had craft basically monitoring me for the last 2 years above my house and picking me up on a regular basis for missions, ICC missions.
Yeah, actually, there's something really interesting happened to me last night, and it has to do with those pictures that you sent me through private message there. And just to get into it, it's pretty unreal. Basically, last night I'm asleep and I hear this knock on my door, and I get up and I answer the door. And as soon as I answer the door, I realize that I'm astral projecting, right? Because the two beings standing outside the door, they were human. I could just tell by their energy. As soon as I opened the door, I became lucid in the dream like I do. Yeah. Anyway, so these people, it was a man and a woman, middle-aged, and as an intuitive empath, I just knew right away that they were a part of the ICC and not a part of Solar Warden, and certainly not a part of Dark Fleet, just because of their energy, and I could just tell they were this ICC group. And yeah, it was a man and a woman, middle-aged. The man had red hair, and he was wearing like a tan baseball cap, and he had a tan jacket on with a white dress shirt and tan colored dress pants. And the woman had dark gray dress pants and a white blouse, and she had glasses and brown hair. Just right away, my intuition told me, okay, this is the ICC group. And they came in, and again, this was like very, I was completely lucid. I felt like it was physically happening. I also knew at the same time I was astral projecting. But anyway, so they came in to my house, and we were talking in the living room. Basically, I know that as it was happening, I was completely lucid, and I remember exactly what we were talking about. But when I woke up, the middle part of our conversation, like right now, is completely blocked. But I know just intuitively that they were asking me about the pictures you sent me. They were really concerned about that because the concern was because of the quality of your camera. You actually captured, like you said, the drive
Triangles.
system, the triangles, but then
Yeah.
also the after image of the drive system,
Uh-huh.
and like so they were really concerned about that, and they were asking me questions, and then near the end, basically they they were like, again, I'm getting blocked here trying to remember it, but I know at the end they were really starting to interrogate me, and they were basically saying that that I shouldn't talk to you, kind of thing. Like they're like, it's none of your business. Like, don't, you're not involved with what she's involved in, blah blah blah, and like, and basically at that point, because I'm like completely lucid, I just threatened to pull the plug on the whole meeting and wake up, and that's pretty much where my memory comes back at the end, where I didn't like where the conversation was going. I didn't really like what they were saying about you, and they were basically saying like, don't, like, leave her alone, don't talk to her, kind of thing. And I'm just like, well, like if we want to connect, we can, we have the right to do so, kind of thing. So it just kind of ended there, and I woke up. And yeah, so it was like they were trying to like freak me out a little bit so that I wouldn't talk to you. But the main thing was they were really concerned about you sending me those pictures. That was the main thing that got their attention, and they were not pleased at all. So
Well,
anyway, that's about it.
the thing is, those pictures have been published online in a
Hmm.
YouTube video saying that I saw them above my house.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's already public knowledge. Like, I didn't talk about the drives and the stuff. I thought I'd keep that to myself. Because the funny thing is, my camera, my digital camera, the Nikon 7100, it can't photograph airplanes at night because of the fuel engines. It can't photograph the plane. It just photographs it as a blob. But because of the anti-grav, antimatter, plasma, it's partially plasma and partially crystalline as well engines in those triangular craft, and they're not even the 3B, the TR3B. It's something else. It's a more advanced craft, the triangles I'm seeing, because it's also powered by crystal engines. It's part plasma and part crystal. So my
Yeah.
camera, it just, when I take the picture, it picks up the trail. It picks up the plasma trail, I think. That's what it picks up as the craft accelerates. Midway
Yeah,
point, it
that's
picks it
really
up.
interesting because the craft I remember were not that advanced. So, like when I photographed the white TR3B, it just had three lights on it, and you can kind of see paneling, and it didn't have the same drive system, I don't think.
Yeah, I sometimes these blink white lights as well, and sometimes it's blue or yellow, the
Hmm.
triangles. So I think it's different craft that come to visit. It's not always the same stuff. I mean, I wish I had the Coolpix P900 because that really zooms in on even closer. I don't have it. It's too expensive. It's like $800. So I don't see the need because I've already taken some decent photos, so I don't see the need to get it. But I wish I did have it because that really zooms in on anything. It has 83x zoom.
Right. It's interesting. I actually didn't know that you had already published those online, and it's interesting in terms of what happened last night. The middle part is like completely when they really interrogated me. That's like blocked out. It started with them asked, like I remember how the conversation started, and they were just saying like, "So you saw the photos?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Ileana sent me those photos," and like, "Okay," and then that was just kind of a segue into it. But the overall impression I got that they were not pleased that we were in communication, and the reason is I actually do have a memory of you, believe it or not. And this is probably the real concern they had. And I wrote it down, and I didn't include this in my interview with Denny. The interview actually went longer than I thought it would, and I was kind of getting tired near the end, so I left this part out. And I guess I'm glad I did, because now I can just run it by you.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. So here it goes. Basically, I have one memory of you, and you were basically teaching a swimming class, and it was again underground, kind of like brown rose-colored slabs of stone. I'm not sure if it was on Mars, although I get this like feeling that it may have been on Mars underground. You were standing on the far side of the pool, and there was a group of us, boys and girls, and we're in these like black wetsuits, but with the sleeves cut off. We walk out, and you're wearing like the same thing. We come out of the changing room, and you tell us to jump in the water and space ourselves out so we have room to tread water. And all it was you were testing the rhesus positives. It was an endurance test, and you just had us treading water as long as we could. That went on for hours and hours and hours, and eventually some people dropped off. And I remember it was me and a couple other people, and we were going, and then yeah, eventually near the end of my memory, I just eventually had to drop out. I don't think I was the last one. I think a couple other people were, at least two others were still going when I had to drop out. And then that's it. But what's interesting about that is I do remember that in terms of the training, Solar Warden would like outsource their training to certain ICC groups that would facilitate training for them, because they didn't really have the personnel to do all of their training on their own. They would actually outsource it to ICC groups, and then we would be put into their care temporarily, and they would test us and train us, and then relay all that information back to Solar Warden. But anyway, that's just the only memory I have of you.
The trick to the swimming thing was the endurance. The ones that cheated and used their psychic ability to stay afloat, like to create an energy bubble around themselves, they lasted.
Yeah, that was definitely a part of it. It was I remember being taught that in the water you could, for lack of a better term, like basically put out your chi, and your chi. The trick was to imagine these balloons of energy underneath your knees and underneath your arms, like basically where you would put flotation devices. But it was like imagine that you're resting like on the universe itself, this invisible balloon bubble, and then you could actually feel it if you visualize this balloon of energy, underneath your knees and underneath your arms, and that would really help you stay afloat, opposed to just doing it through brute force.
Yeah. I don't even know how to swim. That's the interesting part.
Really?
I don't know how to swim.
Well, you never got into the water. You were just standing in the memory, and this is like a recurring dream I have now. You're just standing on the end of the pool, and I mean, you were wearing the wetsuit, but you never actually got into the water. But who knows? Maybe you can swim, but that's just something that got blocked out. Maybe that skill set got blocked out. I don't know.
I can swim on my back pretty well, and I could swim with those floater things. When I put the floaters on, I could swim. But without the assist, I can't swim at all. Like, just on my back, doggy paddling. But I can't see where I'm going, so I never learned how to properly swim. It was just so frustrating. I tried. I took courses, when I was about 12, but it was so frustrating. I just gave it up. I got so angry because I couldn't stay afloat on my stomach. I could only stay afloat on my back. And the instructor tried. My mom tried to teach me. It's like, but I learned how to roller skate and rollerblade and ride a bike on my own without anybody teaching me, like naturally. Anything to do with wheels, you know, riding a bike, rollerblading came naturally to me. Nobody had to teach me. But swimming is just like so retarded.
That's interesting because I haven't watched all your interviews. You've quite a few. I've watched all of yours with Denny, and then I was just tonight when I got home. I started watching the one, and ironically enough, it was when you were talking about your lifetime in Atlantis as a mermaid. So do you think maybe that has to do with the getting into that? Like you said, you broke your back, you hit a rock, and
Yeah.
maybe that's why you can't swim in this lifetime because the neurological damage, and then maybe just like the fear you have of that, or
Well, I don't have a fear of water. That's the thing. I don't fear going into the water. I don't. I just don't know how to swim properly.
hmm.
What I am afraid of is earthquakes. Because I died in an earthquake. So it's not the water itself that I fear. It's being in an earthquake zone. And in terms of the ICC and the SSP, I told them to back off, and I said, you don't have permission to take me anymore. Like I said, energetically, you just don't have permission to take me anymore. I don't give you permission to come anywhere near me or to beam me up anywhere.
In that work, they haven't been back.
Yes, they haven't not been back.
Good, yeah.
It's like free will. If people realize that they have free will, and if you say no, they actually have to respect that. Unless
Although
you,
they're tricky. Like last night, the way this group they actually knocked on my door, and I know it's like out of body, but technically, if I feel like if I didn't respond to if I didn't actually open my door, you know, even in the dream, if I had just kept the door shut and maybe peered through the window and saw them and didn't answer, maybe they would have left me alone. So I get what you mean. It's like even if you just hear a knock at your door, as soon as you open your door, it's like you're kind of almost giving permission because you've opened your door to
yeah,
them. You
yeah.
know, yeah.
And besides, I normal military stuff does not interest me, and they're not really interested in me unless it's something to do with off-world, or they want something to be remote viewed. That's the last time they picked me up, Earth Defense Force. It was on April 15th.
Uh,
And
Sorry, what year?
2017.
2000. Oh, wow, oh, recently.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And it wasn't the ICC or the SSP because I told them you can't pick me up. It was Earth Defense Force because I didn't exclude them from my list. They actually picked me up. They wanted me to remote view something, and it was somewhere near in California in this cabin. There was this cabin in the woods, and underneath, they led me through the cabin to the underground base in California. And they had me do a lot of remote viewing of topography and geographical locations. They were looking for something very specific for a location. Also a secret building of some sort. And they wanted me to remote view that location to find specific coordinates. And I remember it was like a TR3B because the re-entry was rough. I went through the atmosphere somewhere. I went up in space briefly after I did the remote viewing, and the re-entry was tough. Like I could feel myself zooming in, like from the craft zooming back in from the atmosphere, and then I was just beamed down into my bed.
Yep. Yeah, it is a rough ride. Definitely, it's not that futuristic, is it? At that level.
It depends on which craft picks you up. It really depends because the ICC has all the advanced craft in the toys. Earth Defense Force has mid-level stuff. So it really depends what picks you up and who picks you up.
Now, Earth Defense, I actually haven't heard of that. Is that related to Solar Warden, or is that a different faction?
It's mostly it's a different faction. It's Earth-based.
Hmm.
They protect the perimeter of Earth itself and anything to do with Earth matters.
Okay.
But they
Yeah,
they
yeah.
do have Earth perimeter ships around the Earth.
And does that have anything to do with like the Earth Alliance? Are they a part of the Earth Alliance? Uh,
They're not a part of the Earth Alliance, but they work closely with the Earth Alliance, very closely. They partner up on certain matters if it's in alignment with what they're doing, then they partner up for sure.
what's interesting is I was looking at our Facebook conversation here, and you said that you served until 2010 with one of the Nordic groups. And in
Yes.
terms of my timeline, when I was picked up in late 2008, the Solar Warden is affiliated with the Nordic group. And so that's a detail that sticks out in my mind. And then, yeah, I was picked up in late 2008. And if you served with one of the Nordic groups in terms of the ICC until 2010, that would have been that little bit of overlap there in terms of the timeline. If you were training us, it would have been in our first year in 2009.
Are are you
Yeah,
aware of Ashtar Command?
I am aware of the PSYOP known as Ashtar Command. How do you feel about that before I say anything about it?
Well, they're the Nordics. They're one of the groups.
Really?
Yeah. Blue uniforms, blonde hair. Those are the ones that I was training with, that
Wow.
I was
See,
with.
I think they're trying to cover that up because there's a lot of like people like channelers and that who say that they're channeling Ashtar and that we're going to be in the fifth dimension next month kind of thing, and that they have all these cloaked ships that are going to save humanity, and that's just red flags kind of go up right away when
Yeah.
they keep bumping up the timeline of
Yeah.
we're just going to skip over fourth density and we're just going to move into fifth and they're going to pick us up and save us. I don't think so, but
No.
but I think that's part of the disinfo psyop with the Ashtar command, so that
Yes.
people don't really look into it, and the ones that buy into that are kind of like the more of the new ager types that really believe that at any time now the ETs are going to save us and take us to the fifth dimension, which is a that's a little far out for me even.
Yeah. Yeah, but the what I remember is his name was actually Ashtar and his attaché was Athena. So that's what maybe that's a false implant of a memory to cover up who they really were.
Hmm.
But I know it was Nordics, and I know it was somehow related to the ICC. They gave me out on loan to the Nordics for something. Because do you ever remember that there was a reptilian armada fleet until 2011 hovering above the Earth?
I know that it was around Mars, like between Earth and Mars. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it was between Earth and Mars. In terms of what I can remember, it was kind of just sitting there, cloaked,
Yeah.
and yeah.
So I was given on loan to the Nordics to repel the armada.
And oh, okay. So, is it okay for you to talk about that operation
Yeah,
now?
I can talk
Okay.
about it. I've talked about it to Denny. I said Ashtar, I served with Ashtar and Athena. Now, I said Ashtar Command, but what I really think it was, it's just a Nordic group that worked closely with the ICC.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I do have some memories with the Ashtar command in terms of I just remember this space station. It might have been one of their craft. They were sitting at like a long table, and there was that tall, blonde-looking guy that looks like what the artist depictions of Ashtar.
Yes.
And yeah, there was a dark-haired, she had black hair, I believe, woman beside him, and yeah, they were at this table. I have that flash memory, but I do also remember that it was explained to me that Ashtar actually means his star. And that's actually it meant his star, as in like this was his fleet, his star fleet. So Ashtar, his star, and that's actually they just say Ashtar in their language, but it would be translated to his star. That's just a little detail, remember?
And he did not like it when I would jokingly say, "Hey, Ash." He would get mad.
Yeah, he was very formal,
Yes.
very stern, and like he was there to do a mission. He was not there to make friends, kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's the impression I got. He was just there to do a mission.
yeah, same. But I would goad him. I would say, "Hey, Ash." I would continually call him Ash, and he would just call me by my appropriate name. You are here to do your job. We're repelling the reptilians. This is not fun and games here. We're here to do a job. So do your job and what you're trained for.
That's something I noticed too, just in the program in general. The ETs did not have the same sense of humor that kind of, how humans do in a tight situation. Will kind of like crack a joke just to kind of like, alleviate the situation a little bit. And they actually see that as a sign of disrespect, as like you're not actually respecting the danger.
Yeah.
You're not, and they seen that as like just kind of you're being incompetent. You're not respecting the danger. Pay attention. Don't joke around.
Yeah, and I said this is just like a pet name. I don't do it to offend you. It's just Earth is just how Earthlings are. And he's like, well, once in a while it's fine, not when we're in public. He's like, you have a mission to do here, just stick to your mission. I'm like, okay.
So what was involved in do you remember what was actually involved in how you repelled that fleet, the reptilian fleet? Because I do remember it was hovering around Mars,
Yeah.
and then in the northern hemisphere, if I remember correctly, and then it kind of
Yeah.
moved into this middle point between the Earth and Mars, and everyone was just kind of like, are you like, what are you doing? Are you actually moving towards the Earth now? Like we got pretty freaked out when they moved away from Mars towards Earth.
Well, the reptilians wanted to take over the Earth, and Ashtar Command, because I call it that, I remember it as that, they had a fleet of roundish, circular type ships, huge ships. And I was doing communications, encoding, decoding communications, passing it on between the different ships to see where the reptilians were moving. Because some of the ships would separate from the armada and kind of sneakily move off. So we were tracking them to make sure they didn't go and land on Earth space, like actually land on Earth and breach Earth space. So we were tracking the stragglers, the ones that actually tried to sneak away from the armada. And they would be shot down if they attempted to land on Earth, even cloaked. So that was interesting. I was just mostly doing communications. I wasn't in the fighting. I was just in the tracking and monitoring part of it, and passing the data between ships, the various Ashtar Command ships. So,
Right.
and I remember the blue. What I remember is the distinct blue uniforms: light eggshell blue and dark blue. That's what I remember.
Yeah, that's interesting. Whenever I see that show Star Trek Enterprise, and it shows their original uniforms before they were, like, I guess technically Starfleet, it really reminds me of that. The dark blue uniform, especially in that show. I definitely it just stands out to me when I watch that show because I'm like, whoa! I remember the Nordics wearing that, and I'm trying to remember in terms of like Solar Warden. It's one of the memories that's really like blocked. They in terms of how the uniforms looked. I remember like a dark teal uniform, like a dark gray.
Yes, dark gray. Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember that too, and very tight skin fitting. It's like, and it self cleans itself. The fiber material. The ICC ones, these uniforms clean themselves. They're made of nanofiber.
Hmm.
And some of the SSP uniforms are the same. They're gray. They're not very exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I remember it also had it's probably like what you're talking about. It really helped with body odor. The
yeah.
jumpsuits. It had like almost like a bounce sheet woven into it, so that even if you're starting to smell and you're sweaty underneath, it kind of like masked the smell of body odor because especially with working with ETs, that was something I remember we had to be very hygienic, very well groomed and washed, and then the uniform would mask our body odor, and that was something because for some of the ETs, it was considered very impolite if you smell.
Yes, exactly. And also the ICC uniforms. If you were in deep space missions, you put on the suit. It looks like a uniform or some type of clothing, and it actually prevents you from going into the bath from your bodily functions from going to the bathroom.
Hmm.
It's some kind of an enzyme in the suit, some kind of bioliving matter that just changed your physiology temporarily of your body so you wouldn't have the urge to go big to the bathroom.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I do remember also a lot of like very much a liquid diet on missions. It was very much kind of like this slurry that you would drink and then just kind of keep you going. And again, like what you're talking about, that way, you didn't eat like a huge, big breakfast and then you got to hold it all day. It
Mm-hmm.
was like a very lean diet, very lean, very nutrient dense. But in terms of solid food, I just remember that when you actually got to sit down and eat, like a real breakfast, that was a treat. That was not the norm.
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't. It's all geared toward working, and the social aspect is you stick in the ICC, particularly on their Mars bases. You stick with your work group, and you stick with that group. Basically, you share a room with 12 bunks and like 4 to 2 tables and 4 to 8 chairs, and you stick with your work group. You're not supposed to fraternize with other teams while you're in that specific work group. They're basically your teammates and they're your colleagues and somewhat friends for the duration of your mission. You stick to those other 11 people you're working with, basically. And you don't and in that work group, you can't have sexual interactions.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That was the thing, the emotional when I got a little emotional recalling the Pliar in sickbay when that one of my group members found she was pregnant, and I'm not sure what happened with that, but I remember that's why she was freaking out because she was pregnant, and that means she violated one of the major rules, which is you don't have sexual intercourse with any of your group members, anyone really. I mean, again, it's like what Ashtar said. It's like you're there to do a job. You're not there. It's not like in Star Trek where you have all these little soap operas going on in the background and people are romancing each other. Everyone is just in the zone, and yeah, you just stay in the zone. You're not there to fall in love.
No, it's
So
very. And it was on the ICC basis. It was very on Mars. It was very military like. You had your specific times where you work, where you meet with your teammates after work, you debrief, and then you eat, and then you sleep, and do it all over again the next day.
yeah, yeah, and totally, and even that's what I mean. How you really just stuck to your group and your assignment. I just wanted to before I let you go back to the when you're talking about the reptilian armada.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you feel that was a joint effort between Solar Warden and the ICC, and then the Nordic group?
Well, I remember the ICC being there and the Nordics being there. I think Solar Warden was there as well. They just kept me on the Nordic ships and would beam me down to the Mars bases. I didn't see
Hmm.
Solar Warden. I didn't see that side of it, the operation, but it was what they actually did with Solar Warden. They had upgraded the ships to have beyond speed of light. They upgraded Solar Warden ships. They were working on the experimental ships actually at that time to go beyond the speed of light. Warp drives for Solar Warden ships. They were upgrading those ships. So Solar Warden got a huge upgrade.
When we started talking about naming names, yeah, we got cut off. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
just as I was saying that Solar Warden got upgrades to their ships, um, their engines got upgraded to go beyond the speed of light.
Yes, yes, that's such an important detail. I remember them explaining to us that the ships that we were on, the White Triangle, it had near light speeds, not even the speed of light, near light speeds.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, yeah, so that makes sense that they would have to be upgraded, especially for that conflict.
Yes. So they were just in the process of the upgrades to the warp drives. Because Solar Warden had older style ships and they weren't happy with that. They're like, how are we supposed to engage if we can't go beyond the speed of light? We can't
Yeah,
engage with an armada like the reptilians because they can go beyond the speed of light. They have huge ships. And they were like, the ICC has this stuff already. You've had it for decades. Now we want some of the good stuff. So it got an upgrade finally. I remember that part of it, and
yeah.
that was amazing.
Now this ICC group, that you were a part of, did it have a name at all that you remember, like a designation of any kind?
I don't remember any specific designations. What I do remember is being on 11 bases on Mars, continually being rotated. I don't remember a specific name. What I do remember is the Wolfennacht. That's what the Dark Fleet was called.
Oh
Night
wow.
Weapons Roar. But the thing is, it had a lot of Americans in it, people who spoke really good English, and some Germans. So it wasn't your typical, like, when people think of the ICC, they think Germans. Not so much. It was a mixture of many different countries, predominantly the US.
Yeah, yeah, and how I understand it is the ICC groups, because there's oh, how what is it, like the 300 families, the nobility families that actually own a lot of the corporations, either
Yeah.
directly or indirectly. It's really those nobility families behind the ICC that really fund it,
Mm-hmm.
because they're the ones that have like the gold and everything,
Yes.
and they're funding it. And these are nobility families that just they'll fund a corporation to so they can be a part of the SSP. And but yeah, it's very mixed because of like different nationalities from Europe and in
Yeah.
America, and that eventually moved to America.
Yep.
But a lot of them were just based out of Europe and the Middle East. And yeah, yeah, and in tracing back, like if you were to follow the money in terms of the different ICC groups, it usually goes to one of these royal houses, and it's kind of like that. Whatever like ICC group is doing something, it's kind of like that's just like back in feudal times. That's like that
Mm-hmm.
houses little army, like
Yes.
and that would be one ICC group, and then the next group might be competing with another group because of resources or whatever. It's just like feudalism, but on a much grander scale.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. I don't, like I said, I don't remember a specific name for it. I guess I cared more about the details of what happened. I'm sure it's in my memory somewhere. I haven't gone digging for it, so, but I do remember the Waffen Notched Regier. Now, Waffenatsch, that's German, and Reger, that's Spanish for roar. Spanish and Reger is Spanish roar.
Hmm.
I remember speaking a lot of Spanish in when I had to deal with the Dark Fleet.
Yeah, that makes sense because of Spain's connection to Germany during the war, being
Yeah,
fascist as well.
and I remember I in high school I took Spanish classes. I was fascinated with Spanish. I hated French. French, I like hated it with a passion. Never wanted to learn. I had some kind of aversion to French, but Spanish was easy. It was like just like came so easily to me to learn it. It's like I already knew it. I've lost it now. I'm not so interested in Spanish, so I've lost this. I'm not fluent in it anymore, but I used to be because I spoke it in the ICC when I had to deal with Dark Fleet.